You want to know all about the areas around the Norfolk Navy Base, you're getting stationed there, you want to get some more information about it. It's nothing fancy. Again, not a spot that I would say you're going to drive through and see a bunch of sights, but you're going here for the food, so I'm going to find out what it's like. I'll let you know what I think. Navy Base, keep watching because I think by watching this video, you'll get a peek into some of my favorite neighborhoods in the entire city of Norfolk. We're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sam Sansalone and I'm a real estate agent in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And if it's your first time here, I'm so glad. Hit that subscribe button and also the bell notification that will notify you every time I do a video. And I love helping people move into this area. It's the best thing in the world. And if you have any questions about moving into the area, please let me know. I'll do whatever I can to help you. I have my contact information in the description. Today we're talking about my favorite neighborhoods in Norfolk closest to the Norfolk Navy Base. I have a lot of people that ask me questions about moving to the area and specifically about getting stationed in the Norfolk Navy Base, and so they want to know more about the neighborhoods around it and best places to live. So I thought we'd talk about some specific neighborhoods that are my favorites in different price ranges to help people. But at the very end I talk about one neighborhood that fulfills the most culture-rich aspect of Norfolk and also close to the Navy Base. Now interspersed in the neighborhoods, I'm also going to throw in 3 restaurants that I think you should try too that I have not mentioned in other videos about Norfolk. Now number 1 is PINEWELL. Now you may not have heard of this neighborhood. It's a really small neighborhood, but it's just south of the Ocean View area on the north side of Norfolk. So it's only a 5-minute drive to the Norfolk Navy Base. Now this area is really cool for several reasons. First of all, it's kind of tucked into a corner. You don't really know it's there. And it's only about a block or so away from the actual Ocean View beach. So you have access to beach, not very far, you can walk there, and you've got a quiet neighborhood and lots of trees. I love trees. If you've seen any of my videos talking about neighborhoods, you know I love trees. And the houses are very unique, and some are Cape Cod style, which is very common in Norfolk, but others are really interesting styles that have really unique twists to them. Now the price ranges in here are anywhere from as low as $200,000 up to over $400,000, but they're all built in like the 30s and 40s, so they have that kind of style to them, and they're usually 3 or 4 bedrooms. So if you're looking for kind of a modest size house, but you want access to beach, but you don't want to live necessarily on the beach, PINEWELL is a great option, and it's only 5 minutes or so away from the gate at Norfolk Navy Base. So you have to be patient a little bit as you find the house. Number 2 is Colonial Place. I've done a whole video about Colonial Place. I love Colonial Place, partially because of the affordability of it for what you get. It has that colonial style house that I think people love and I love and is a big part of the city of Norfolk. This area is accessible to water. That's where all the higher price houses in here go. Those are closer to $500,000 in that range. But if you go off the water, you're talking about anywhere from $250,000, sometimes lower, up to $350,000, $400,000 usually. That's kind of the meaty range of these houses. And one thing about this neighborhood is its character. It's got some great trees and nice streets, but the character of the houses specifically are what I love about these. They're colonial style, real tall ceilings, real big wide open rooms. Some have basements, and because of that, there are often sump pumps, which I'll talk about that later. And the reason I say that is that this area also is known to flood, which is the downside of this area. So for the type of house that's in this neighborhood, usually you have to pay a little bit more to get it in other parts of Norfolk, and we'll talk about those areas later. But this one has, I think, the most bang for buck for what you get. They're anywhere from 2 bedrooms up to 5 bedrooms, and so they're built in that 1910, 1920, 1930 time period, which has that cool style to it. The downside about this area is that it often requires flood insurance, especially on the exterior sides of this neighborhood. And the flooding aspect here is not necessarily the houses themselves flooding, it's the driving, the roads being blocked because of water. So there are spots that are just outside of this neighborhood that can flood pretty easily. So you might need to just plan to have some alternate routes to get to where you need to be, especially the Norfolk Navy Base. And the drive from Colonial Place over to the base is just around 10 minutes. Now number 3 is a really cool neighborhood called Lakewood. Lakewood is just north and east of Colonial Place. This area is totally different than Colonial Place. If you like trees, like I like trees, you're gonna love Lakewood. Lakewood's got all kinds of trees. Sometimes you see more trees than you do houses. You've got plenty of shade, but you also have some access to water. but those houses on the water get really expensive. So in this neighborhood, you're starting at around that $350 price range, but really not until you get into the $4s where you see most of the houses. And when you get closer to the water, they can be upwards of $700,000 and $800,000. Now some of these are like the brick ranch style, and some are built in the 30s, but as you get into this neighborhood, you'll see some that are built in the 40s and the 50s, and a few you'll notice that might feel like that mid-century modern that is actually kind of hard to find in this area. Drive distance to Norfolk Navy Base, about 8 to 10 minutes. Now the next one is actually a couple that are on both sides of a street called Granby Street, called Cromwell Park and Talbot Park. Now I will say that these kind of houses, I love them. They kind of define to me a lot of parts of Norfolk. They have really unique designs to them in some ways, but in the other ways you'll see some houses that are just like boxes. But because I am familiar with Norfolk and love what Norfolk offers, these kind of styles to me are kind of interesting, even though they look kind of basic when you see them. The neighborhoods are real established. They start from anywhere from like the 350, 300,000 sometimes price range up to $5 and $550. But if you go to the water, some of these go up to $1 million plus. So these are really cool access points on the water on the Lafayette River. Now this area is cool because it's right off of Granby Street, which is a really large connecting road from the north side of Norfolk all the way to the south side into downtown Norfolk. But you have also quick access to the areas in Ghent and Norfolk, as well as on the western side of Norfolk too, and drive distance to Norfolk Navy Base, about 7 to 8 minutes. Now I want to talk about the first restaurant I think that is awesome, that you need to check this out if you love ethnic food. Yendidi African Cuisine. Now this is kind of right in the middle of Norfolk. If you love African cuisine, or if you haven't tried it yet, I strongly suggest you check this place out. It has a bunch of options from the West African countries. I'll put the address right here so you can see it if you want to go check it out. Now number 5, we're going to shift over east a little bit. This one's called Meadowbrook Forest and Meadowbrook Terrace. I've mentioned in other videos about areas in Norfolk that are kind of bland. Well, this one is stuck right in the middle of an area that I think is generally bland. That does not mean the neighborhood's bland. It's just the exterior areas around it kind of are. But when you get into Meadowbrook Forest and Terrace, oh yeah, I love this. Lots of trees, again, but if you go down some of these back streets, it gets real quiet, and these houses are really unique. And this is an area, if you love mid-century modern houses, there are some interspersed in here that are really, really cool. Part of it, you can start in the mid 200s, 250 to 300,000, but for the houses like those mid-century modern, those bigger ones, you're talking 350, 400 or so, but still relatively inexpensive compared to what you get. And they can be anywhere from like the mid 1,000 square foot range up to 2,500, 3,000 square feet. Now you are close to the airport, the Norfolk International Airport, not the Oceana Naval Air Station where all the jet noise is, but you're all close to the airport, and so you might hear some planes flying, but I've never really had a bad experience as far as it being super loud. Drive distance to the base, 10 minutes. Now the next neighborhood is actually two together. The area is called Bel Air and Forest Park. They're kind of sandwiched together. The reason I'm talking about these together is that these are lower priced neighborhoods, but they're some of the ones I think are kind of best for if you want something that isn't too super fancy, but kind of gets the job done in that like lower $200,000 price range. I would check these places out. They're just off of Chesapeake Boulevard and Little Creek Road, and they're not too far away from lots of things, but they're not in areas that are super exciting, but they're real comfortable for the price. So like in Forest Park, for instance, you'll see more Cape Cod style, like early 40s construction. So these Cape Cod style, I've mentioned this before, where you see a lot of like 2 bedrooms downstairs and 2 upstairs or 1 upstairs. And the roof lines are such that when you go up to the second floor, they're kind of like, they're slanted. So you don't feel like that's an entire room, but you can still use them as rooms, and people use them as bedrooms. So if you like this kind of house, you can get a great deal for a house like this in a place like Forest Park. Just over a little bit, a few streets over to Bel Air, this is, I'd say, one of the lower priced neighborhoods in Norfolk that also has the most character to it. Not character like the colonial style houses in Colonial Place, but brick ranches like the 40s, 50s, and 60s houses, but they have lots of trees, well-developed neighborhood here. So you got lots of shade, and it's real tucked away and quiet. So it checks a lot of those established neighborhood boxes that are real in demand, but you're not paying as much to get this. So you can be as low as $250, maybe $275, $290, $300. You can get a great neighborhood, great spot, and not too far away from the Navy Base. Drive distance to the Navy Base, between 8 and 10 minutes. Now the next neighborhood is GLENGARIFF. Now this one's back over towards the airport near Meadowbrook Forest. Now this one I love because it's real scarce, like there aren't too many houses in here. Back to the well-treed streets, you're also on the water here, so there's some great water access points here for a pretty reasonably affordable price. And these price ranges start in like the mid 300s up to like the $450,000, $500,000 price range. The ones on the water are the highest ones that can be in that $500,000 plus range, but you do have some real nice views, and you also have some options for mid-century modern if you do like that kind of thing too. And another benefit of this is you're close to the water, but these houses do not require flood insurance. I don't think there are any actually that require flood insurance. Now the next restaurant I'll talk about is La Yaroa Tropical Restaurant. Now, I'm kind of butchering the pronunciation, but this is a Caribbean restaurant that I really like. Now, one of my favorite dishes at this place is the trifongo, which is lots of plantains, if you like plantains, all mixed together. It's this big dish with garlic on it. I think it's really, really cool. It's really unique. It's like this big stack of plantains with mash. You might think my taste in food is really weird, but I just like really unique eclectic food. So if you like stuff like I like, give this place a try. Now the last neighborhood I'm talking about is the one I think is real cool, Larchmont. I did a whole video about Larchmont in another video. I'll throw it up here. But one of the things I like most about this neighborhood is that it like kind of defines what a lot of Norfolk is all about. It's got that colonial style. It's close to Ghent, close to Old Dominion. That whole western side of Norfolk I just think is really awesome. But it's also a pretty large neighborhood too. It spans on both sides of Hampton Boulevard, as you see on the map here. It has sidewalks, which is not always very easy to find in older areas of Norfolk and other cities, which is really attractive for families, of course. Now the price ranges in here are anywhere from like the $300,000 up to $500 plus. Now they're also pretty decent sized houses too, like they can go anywhere from like 1,500 to 2,000 up to 3,000, 4,000, sometimes on the water 5,000 square feet and up. But they're very, very Norfolk houses, like colonial style, but also lots of basements, which you don't see too many basements in any of Hampton roads. Now, in addition to that, I mentioned before about sump pumps. You'll see some sump pumps in this area also because this area is known for flooding. Well, what a sump pump is it is a mechanism that is designed to pump water out of somewhere. Often you'll see them in basements, so if water does come into a basement, this pump is designed to collect the water and then pump it out of that section of the basement, out into the outside of the house. This is helpful for obvious reasons, but obviously the drawback here is the fact that the implication of needing a sump pump is that there's water that can get into the basement. So this area can flood. So keep that in mind as you're looking for houses in here. As you'll see on the map here, I'll do a screenshot. You can see this purple area are all in this area that require flood insurance. They're in high risk flood zones. I think the biggest concern about the flooding is, like I say about other areas of Norfolk, is that the commute is the biggest issue, not necessarily being worried about the house flooding, if you know what I mean. And some of these flood insurance premiums can be pretty high, so check with your insurance agent before you move forward far enough into the house process so you make sure you know exactly what your payment's gonna be. And it's also close to Ghent and the western part of Norfolk. You can walk over to the Old Dominion football games, for instance, if you wanted to. It's also near the water, and it's only 5 minutes or so away from the Norfolk Navy Base. Drawback? Flooding. Now the third restaurant is actually one I have not been to yet, but I thought we'd do a little bit of fun exercise. First, I'll tell you about the restaurant itself. It's called Plate Me Please Seafood Bistro. Now, I think it's a relatively new restaurant. I heard about it, and I heard it's really, really good. I'm gonna try it and let you know what I think about it. It's in an area called Sewell's Point, which is kind of like right smack dab in the middle of Norfolk. The address is right here. Now, I've done all kinds of videos about Norfolk, about the areas in Norfolk, neighborhoods, and other cities in Hampton Roads. So if you have any questions about this area, first of all, you can click these videos here, subscribe to my channel, and you can also ask me anything you'd like. I've got my contact information in the description. But in the meantime, I will see you on the next video.